Welcome back to RFL. One top religious leader in New York who served in Congress is Reverend Floyd Flake, kind of an institution in New York. The pastor of the Allen AME Church in Jamaica, Queens, Flake was known for, among other things, working with folks on both sides of the aisle. Well, today, the Reverend sat down with our own Dominic Carter to assess the presidential contest, and he had a lot of interesting things to say, Dom.
Well, Rich, it's funny you use the word interesting because Reverend Flake is an interesting man. Flake didn't start out as a supporter early on of Mr. Obama, instead endorsing Hillary Clinton. He believes the president does have an enthusiasm problem with the base, but he believes Obama ultimately will win the election. If memory serves correct, Jack Kemp wrote one of the introductions to one of your books.
Right.
You have a close relationship with Colin Powell. You served in Congress for a number of years. How do you see the presidential race, considering just last night the Republicans wrapped up their convention?
Well, I see this particular race, it's somewhat disconcerting to the degree that the Obama administration has been castigated for some things that they are not responsible for. Some of it is a carryover from the president that he assumed the position from. And so much of what he is trying to solve is not a problem that was created during his tenure. He inherited it, and he's tried to do the best he can. I'm not so sure anyone else would have done any better. And as I look at the presidential race right now, I think it is almost a toss-up. He is still ahead in the polls, but you and I both know polls are determinative by turnout, and it's going to be a question of how people turn out in the election. I think he will still win because he is the incumbent, but I think it's going to be a tough race for him in order to win the election again. Last night,
did Mr. Romney help himself? Did he introduce himself to the American people in a good way, and a better way, considering the Obama folks have been on the attack defining him before he had a chance to do it himself?
Well, I think he defined himself, but the definition of who he is still a matter that we're going to have to dig deeper to really find out what happened, for instance, at Bain, what it meant shifting jobs overseas. And I think that when they get into their debates, we will have a real sense of whether or not Romney is the person that can lead the country out of this. My personal feelings is neither one of them will get it done in 4 years.
There's been a lot of talk about whether or not President Obama will have a problem with the base, enthusiasm.
Right.
Is there a problem? Is this media driven? What's your take on this?
No, I think there is a problem with enthusiasm. People were so excited in the last election that there was no question that they were going to turn out. They were going to be at the polls. In every polling station I went to, people were around the corner, around the school buildings where they were going to vote, and they couldn't get in. I mean, and they were in the line a long time. They suffered in that line because they wanted to vote for Barack Obama. I think what I've found as I've traveled nationally is that African American people who basically, it manages a great deal of that base, many of them have been turned off because they cannot make the distinction between an African American being president and an African American being ward leader or district leader in their particular community. And what I said to them recently in New Orleans at the Essence event is that you don't elect a president to deal with your local agenda. When you elect a president and he happens to be African American, you don't put a demand on him to lock him into fulfilling all of your local considerations, because you elect other people for those positions, and you have other kind of local leaders who should take that responsibility.
Pastor Flake, on the controversial issue of the police and stop and frisk, you support the mayor, his position. Why?
I support Mayor Bloomberg on stop and frisk because our boys are killing one another. I am one of the persons, as a pastor, who have to face the families when one of these children get killed. So whether it's a 22-year-old who got shot in the head, whether it is a young lady who got killed because somebody was not invited to the party and broke in and killed her, or whether it's the kid that's 4 years old, 3 years old out in the park. The reality is we cannot sit on the sidelines and pretend that our problem is the cause of those who are trying to assist and trying to drive down the crime. Our responsibility becomes, how do we position ourselves as a people to deal with the reality that our own people are killing one another?
Now, Richard, Reverend Flake feels that the New York City race for mayor is wide open. All the candidates are courting him, and Flake believes Bloomberg ultimately will go down in history, Richard, as one of the better mayors of New York City.
And the Reverend likes to be courted. All right, we're going to wrap things up after this. Stay with us.